Meeting to order. All of those that can, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Roll call, please.
All board members are present.
All right. Rule of agenda.
I'd like to move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support, Salvia. Any moves and supported? Vote, please.
Mr. Howe,
Mr. Howe votes yes.
Mr. Charlotte,
Charlotte, yes.
Ms. Frederick,
Yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Hamel,
Emily, yes.
motion carries.
Okay, consent agenda. You get a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mr. Charlotte,
Charlotte, yes.
Ms. Frederick,
Yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Mr. Howe votes yes.
Mr. Hamel,
Emily, yes.
motion carries.
Okay, announcements. Highland Township offices are closed on Friday, July 4th in observance of Independence Day. The Red, White, and Blues Festival fireworks will be on June 28th, 2025. Farmers Market will be held every Saturday beginning June 14th at the Highland Township Complex, right out in front of the building here. It sounds like summer Tuesday night concert series begins July 8th at 7 p.m. in Veterans Park. And the fire department, you want to make an announcement on that? Here, there's one.
Yep, we looks like we have one or two members. We wanted to congratulate. Every year we do a paramedic scholarship for our two firefighters to be able to put toward paramedic schooling to advance their education. This year's, I'd like to congratulate Kevin Garrity, who made it here in the back, and also firefighter EMT Drake Mancon. He's unable to make it here today. Probably got tied up with doing something at the station because he's working today. But he wanted to be here, and they're both very appreciative and to thank you, and also for you guys to see and be able to know who our future and education is going to and where our funds are going to.
Thank you,
Please
guys.
congratulate them.
We appreciate that. Okay, on a sad note, recently the passing of Ray Palladori. He was a former Highland Activity Council advisor, planning commissioner member from 2000 to 2005, and a township trustee from 2005 to 2012. I think Ray was 81 years old, and he did us a lot of good in Highland, and he'll be missed by many. Next item is public comment.
Could I do an announcement real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to mention that, so the deputy clerk is on an extended medical leave, and I have appointed Julie Kabalka as our interim deputy clerk to fill in while Dawn is on leave.
All right.
I just want to make a quick announcement. I just want to thank Grant for his amazing job so far on the, I don't know what we call what are we calling that? Boardwalk or front of Kawasanis or Snooks or whatever we're calling it now too. But looks great. It's funny. It was fun. It's fun watching it develop because it's like stuff's there and there's more there. And so you still got more to do, but job well done. Look, it's going to look great when it's all done. So thank you very much.
All right. Anybody else?
Not everybody knows I wanted to make it known to the public. So we have a firefighter that's out on medical right now for personal reasons. The IFF, our firefighter union, along with Commerce's IFF firefighter union, has done a golf outing for her to try to raise some money and funds for her. I'd like to get it out to the public and let everybody know and be aware of it. It's Friday, September 19th. I only have the prices right now for anybody that wishes to be a sponsor for sponsoring a hole. So if anybody would like to do that, that's listening, please feel free to contact the fire department. We'll put them in contact with the right person. And then as soon as I find out the cost for the actual teams, I'll let it know.
No, September 19th.
Yep, September 19th, 2025. It's on a Friday. At Moose Ridge Club.
All right.
Hopefully we'll be able to raise some money, help her out. She's gonna have to do a kidney transplant and things like that. So
Okay. Any other
Thank you.
announcements? All right. Move on to public comment. Okay, public comment is your name and the address, please, and 3 minutes.
Ben Pryor, live at 2432 Elkridge Circle. Actually, I'm speaking on the text amendment for Z035 about the mobile food trucks. I've had a couple of comments I've made during the planning commission. You guys will see that in the notes that have been noted in there as well. I think you're only going over the April 3rd notes, but I was also spoken at the meeting after that as well. I'm against this amendment. I see no need for it. I like the food trucks, the way they're being able to be served right now, the way they can go throughout the community. I'd like to keep it that way and dismiss this amendment. That's all I really have to say at this point. Thank you.
Next.
Turn the microphone on, please. Thank you.
Yep.
Here anyway, to my knowledge, it's only us that are in the area. So I don't know why we have a need for an ordinance to knock it down to only 3 days. It really puts us out of business what we're doing. And that Highland, I keep hearing, is good for small businesses. So I don't understand why this one would be put in place that would put us out of business. So. And I might have some more during the thing if it's allowable. Thank you for your time.
Right. Anybody else? Don't touch it.
My name is Anne Goulet, and my address is 2478 Ryapel Street down in Detroit. Good evening, Highland Township Board of Trustees. I was here last month speaking about a similar issue. My name is Anne Goulet. I am a licensed architect and a property development specialist. And as such, I represent property owners and operators, businesses, and real estate developers in their many regulatory affairs. This includes overseeing and managing activity related to planning, zoning, and building codes, and to business operations ordinance enforcement departments. I've been doing this type of work for about 30 years. I am here tonight to speak about two concerns. Number one, I have serious reservations about the current zoning ordinance changes on the table tonight, about the legal jurisdiction and enforceability of these, and also some that have already been adopted. I presented these concerns in a letter to you last month, and I resent that letter to you earlier today via email. I passed my review letter across the desk of several other private sector professionals who do the kind of work that I do in the last 3 weeks, and they all agreed with my letter. At best, the proposed ordinance revisions seem like an inconsistent use of planning and zoning staff and resources, and at worst, an attempt to alienate and strangle small firms and food-based businesses. The biggest question on the table that everybody asked me is, why are these ordinances being proposed to you? Typically, zoning ordinance revisions address errors and omissions related to protecting and preserving the peace, health, safety, and well-being of the residents here, as per section 1-2. They are also not allowed to affect other ordinances as per section 1-5. This includes paragraph 12, which specifically covers not prescribing specific parking restrictions or no parking areas. If you are making these types of changes to raise extra funds for the township via your planning and zoning responsibilities, which actually occurs a lot in small townships, then I can offer you several more legal and more respectful ways to do that. I encourage you to reach out to me to discuss this. Either way, this resolution as currently written should not be passed. Second, I would like to know what the trustees plan to do and or what steps you plan to take to address ongoing complaints with people like Wendy, who just stood up, about Highland Planning and Zoning Department fee overcharges, improperly issued violations, misapplication of land use rules to vehicles and not to land, and the interference with the residents' ability to lawfully conduct business and earn income from land that is privately owned and zoned for commercial business use. In particular, because of this, one local resident who owns an MDARD-approved and legally regulated mobile food establishment estimates that she has suffered a revenue loss of around $7,000 and a fee overcharges of around $500. After reviewing the P&Z paperwork, I advised them that they had an excellent case for reimbursement under federal public taking and inverse condemnation laws. I think that they should also return their vehicle to the spot that they were told to be removed from. Typically, traffic enforcement agencies have jurisdiction over this. I'll close my comments here by saying I'm happy to answer any questions as these issues come up tonight during your workshop session. And I would also encourage you again to table these matters until they can be vetted more thoroughly and until you can sort out what your planning and zoning department's obligations and duties are. Thank you very much for your time and your consideration of these matters.
Thank you. Any others? All right. We're going to move on to the next item, which is the presentation for the 2024 financial audit. We'll call our auditors to the forefront.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to present the audit to you tonight. I'm Amanda Kronk. I'm the principal on your financial statement audit, and with me tonight is Hannah Hodgkinson. She is the senior and really oversees the day-to-day of the audit. A couple things. So in front of you tonight in your packets, you should have a copy of the financial statements, a copy of the end of audit letter, and then I also passed out to you a copy of the slide presentation. We thought instead of covering the 50 some pages in the financial statements, we'd boil it down to a few things in the presentation for you. A couple of overall things that I just wanted to point out to all of you tonight. So we spend about 2 weeks on site here at the township auditing the books and records, and we work with Tammy and Rick and Jennifer and Robin and the whole team, and we really just appreciate them cooperating so fully with our audit, answering a number of questions over that 2 weeks, and then also still putting up with us after with a few wrap-up questions. So we really thank you for all of your attention to the audit. One thing I do want to point out in your financial statement, bound financial statements, is the opinion letter. So I won't go over all of the words because there's a lot of words there, but we have issued what's called an unmodified opinion. And that to you is really the highest level of assurance you can get on a set of financial statements. That means that all of our auditing, all of the hours that we've spent auditing, and we can confidently say that your financial statements are free from material misstatement, which is always your goal. You never want to have any modifications to that opinion. So again, kudos on the clean audit. As I mentioned, we did prepare just a few summarized slides of the financial state and the status of different funds within your financial statements. And Hannah is going to kick us off with a few of those slides.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, so yes, our first slide here is all about the revenues. And this slide really breaks out the general fund and the capital improvement fund together. We just show these together, just to show that, the capital improvement fund has primarily been funded by general fund resources for various projects. So it just always makes sense to put those together on this slide here. And then we can just kind of go through the different revenue sections that are up here. As we can see, the largest portion is the state shared revenue and grants, which makes up about 42%. And then this is the largest section year after year for Highland Township. And then the next highest one would be the federal grants, which is 13%. And just a comment here with the federal grants is that this includes some ARPA funding and other various small grants, but all the funding is for ARPA is now used up. And then we see here that the property taxes are at 12%. And then overall, when you look into the financial statements, you'll see that property taxes increased about $1 million from prior year. And this was just due to an increase in the overall taxable value for Highland Township.
So maybe one thing for the board to think about is what this graph here is going to look like for the year you're in, right? So Hannah mentioned that you fully spent your ARPA funding that you received a few years ago. So again, as you move through this fiscal year you're in, just thinking about, you're pulling that revenue out, right? So again, just monitoring the expenses that we're going to talk about on the next slide with that slight reduction there in your revenues.
Yep.
Ready for the next one?
Yes. So these are the expenses for the year. And again, we're showing both for the general fund and the capital improvement fund here. And then we can just see that the general government is definitely the biggest category here at 57%. Then we have public works at 20%, social services at 12%, public safety at 10%. And just overall, this slide very consistent from prior year. So no big swings of any of the expenses. It's all pretty much the same. And then you can go to the next slide. And then this graph here, this shows the past 5 years for fund balance. Again, for the two funds there. And fund balance is really broken out into 3 categories here. As you can see on the bottom of the graph, we have unassigned, which is the spendable funds after considering anything that's committed and assigned. Then we have the blue column there that's assigned, committed, restricted. We just kind of grouped them together for this presentation. And those are really funds that are used for specific purposes. They're committed, they're restricted to certain projects. So there's those. And then we have the non-spendable funds as well, which those just cannot be spent as this is. So then just the major observations that we would make for 2024 would just be that we can see that the assigned, committed, and restricted increase to the 5 million there compared to like the 4.2 million from 2023. And just an overall measure of fund balance is just comparing the overall unassigned fund balance to annual expenditures. At 12/31/24, your unassigned general fund balance was almost 60% of your 2024 expenditures. That means if your revenue stopped today, you would continue paying expenditures for approximately 7 months. While we know this isn't the case, it's just a measure that the township can use to continue to monitor its resources and just compare it to the annual expenditures that you have year after year.
So one question we get a lot is, what does the state think the right percentage is, right, for that metric? And I'm going to give you the response that no one wants to hear, and that's, it depends. So again, we present that to you for your consideration and your use as a tool as you're kind of moving through the year. Certainly looking at your future capital needs is a big part of that. What's coming at us in the next few years. What changes to our current expenses are coming at us in the next few years. So that metric really is dependent on a number of outside factors, but still relevant to you as you're navigating, certainly some political type items, federally, and, certainly the ARPA funding, you've spent the last of that. So again, there's a lot of factors at play, but it's still, a good spot for the township to be in as you're moving forward. And again, just making sure that you're considering those outside factors as you're moving forward. So moving to the next slide, this slide really presents the township as a whole. Now, Hannah's been spending time talking about just your general fund, which is your current resources and current liabilities. This slide gives you a township-wide perspective. So this really is adding in your long-term assets. So your capital, your infrastructure, all those assets, and any long-term liabilities that you have. So long-term debt, et cetera. So if you look at that 2024 column, and really all of the columns, you can see that you've steadily increased your net position township-wide, which again is great, a great spot to be in. You can see that gold bar is by far the largest, and that is your investment in your capital. So that while it is an asset, it is not necessarily a liquid asset, right? So that's about 27.7 million is in capital for both the governmental, the township, and your water infrastructure. You do have a small portion, which is restricted, and then again, the unrestricted, which sits at 7.2 million. So again, just, a bigger picture of the township as a whole. The next slide, I did want to spend just a minute on the water fund activity for this year. So this slide really gives you a snapshot of the water fund at December 31st. You can see your operating revenue was just over $1 million. Your operating expenses just under $1 million. And then you did have some depreciation expense in there. But what I'd like to focus on is there was a slight operating loss in this fund of just over 107,000. So what that means to you is that the expenses to operate the system were larger than the revenues coming in. Now, in talking with management, I know you've been working with the county to take a look at that and review that structure. It's already on your radar, so that's great. And by the way, this is very comparable to the position this fund was in last year. On the right just gives you a snapshot of the net position in that fund. Again, primarily is assets and infrastructure that are in the ground, and certainly an asset to the township, as that's how you're servicing your residents. I'll maybe pause there briefly if there are any questions on any of the numbers before I get into the letter. Okay, great. I did just have a couple comments on the end of audit letter that's in front of you as well. So this is our follow-up letter to the letter you received when we planned for the audit. And this letter will tell you how our audit went in accordance with that plan. I'm not gonna read every page to you, but I did have a couple things that I just wanted to point out. On page 2, we did identify a few items during our audit that did rise to the level of needing to be reported to all of you tonight. A couple of those items relate to year-end accrual adjustments that were focused on various grants the township received and DDA receivables and deferrals. So we worked with management to work through those entries and make sure those were reflected in the financial statements. And we did also assist with a tax account reconciliation and work through some best practices with management there to make sure that reconciliation is following the process for all the others moving forward. And like I said, management has already moved forward and corrected all of those items. Page 3 in the middle of the page, this does let you know that the township was required to adopt a new accounting pronouncement. That is also reflected in the financial statements that you have. So again, we worked with management to ensure that was adopted appropriately. And later in the letter, you'll see that the GASB is not slowing down. You have another standard to adopt in the year you're in and 2 next year. So again, the accounting world is not getting any less complicated, but more complicated. We did not have any other items that were deviations from our plan. So the rest of the letter will tell you that our audit went in accordance with the plan, which is great news. We also, beginning on page 5, provide you some updates on legislative items and other things that are going on, just that you should be aware of, some light reading if you so choose. But certainly, we're happy to take any questions that you have on any of the material in your packets tonight.
Let's go back to page 2 and the accrual adjustments.
Yep.
If you just, the way you read that, it makes it sound like there might have been something negative, but the reality is it was very positive results.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is not an uncommon item in an audit, right? The township has grown significantly. Like I said, the accounting standards have become enormously more complicated. This was GASB standard 101. They started at 1. So again, the world is getting more complicated. The township has grown. And while we did assist with a few accounting adjustments, I think there were 3, we've also had 100. So that you went through an accounting change in the last 13 months, and this was all that our audit uncovered, I think is very commendable.
Yeah. I just wanted to make it, the people that can look at this right now understand it. But so the overall impact of the journal entries resulted in increased assets of approximately $190,000, a decrease in liabilities of approximately $407,000, an increase of revenue of approximately $613,000, and an increase in expenses of $15,000. So when you look at those numbers, that's what I was getting at is
all to the good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So sometimes it's worrisome to people when they see, accrual adjustments.
Sure.
Well, they were all adjusted to the positive. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
I just have a comment to thank you once again for working with us through another audit and to recognize Robin's hard work and you guys working together. You managed to get us through it. And when they said, an accounting change, we had a major change in staffing.
Yeah.
And Amy had been with us for a long time. And then also Karen had retired out of the treasurer's office after a long time. So it's like a new generation, taking up the charge to help the township get all our stuff done. And it got done, and we appreciate your help.
Happy to do it. Thank you so much. If you have any questions or think of anything that you want to ask, certainly feel free to reach out. Our contact information is in the presentation. We're happy to connect on any questions that you have.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your night.
You're welcome. All right. The next item, penny business. We're looking at consideration for approval of text amendment Z034 regarding Class C farm market with events. And we introduced that a month ago. And now is the time to make some decisions on it. So would somebody like to make a motion of some sort?
Well, it starts at.
247. So what you'll be looking at is you'll be looking at the introduction that Beth made at the last meeting, and nothing has changed other than it was an introduction. So on May 5th, we did the first reading, and then today would be the decision making.
I make a motion to approve the text amendment Z 034 regarding Class C farm markets with events.
Charlotte support.
Okay, moved and supported. Discussion.
Comment. I said a couple of times in the last couple of meetings that some of these things should be applicable to the property owner.
Yeah, it's not.
Should be applicable to the property owner. And once again, I don't know if this text amendment really deals with the property owner. This whole thing shouldn't even be happening if the property owner was engaged and it was his responsibility to make the property presentable for a temporary or semi-permanent anything. That was my concern.
This is the farm market one. So
there's two parts
similar, but yeah.
What you're speaking to is the next item.
Okay.
So this is the farm market stuff, which is the first thing we did. So, all right. Any other discussion on this? Grant, you have anything you want to walk us through on this one?
What's that now?
Is there anything you want to walk us through on this?
There's a couple people in the community that came forth and with that kind of been using towards this or whatever, and we don't really have a good usage for maintaining rural atmospheres for people that want to use kind of accessory usages to it. And there's also a lot of businesses that are operating in Highland that are kind of aren't regulated under current ordinance, So this brings it closer. I wouldn't say it brings it full circle, but it brings it closer to those people being able to come in and get it under current ordinance. And then basically it allows the rest of the community to strive towards those things if they want to, which is basically some of the, like Ron Bonadeo basically has done a real great job in the community. Broadview Christmas Tree Farm, Sheltice's, companies like that. A lot of the people, I've got some negative comments back from some people that know those people, but what they really don't see is that if something ever happens to one of those properties, then they won't be allowed to do what they're doing there, So this brings a situation where we can bring it under the umbrella of ordinance and not just say that these things are grandfathered and we're going to just let it happen, but then nobody else can do it. So it just gets a review process in place and kind of a general outline, but it leaves the planning commission a lot of latitude in looking at all the different factors, and it makes it allowable basically, if it's the right circumstance,
Right. I think one of the things that was discussed was, especially with Lake Schulteis, the Lazy J Ranch, should one of their components of their facility burn down, they would not be allowed today to rebuild it.
Right.
Under the current.
You could look at it negative if you want to, I guess, but because now I wouldn't say imposing rules, but it's imposing some limitations possibly, but we tried to leave it as vague as possible while leaving, some limitations in it, but really it's like you're saying, if something happens to one of those facilities, it burns down, a tornado hits it, then, or maybe people that, maybe leadership changes in the future and they think that, it's not proper or something like that. Cause there really is no such thing as like the grandfather situation, So if somebody for in the future foresees it, it lets them come in, get it on paper, make it 100% legal for what they're trying to do. You know?
Right. It's actually designed to assist them.
Yeah.
Right. Any other questions? Comments? Discussion? All right, vote please.
Ms. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Sir Howe votes yes.
Mr. Charlotte,
Charlotte, yes.
Mr. Hamel,
Hamel, yes.
motion carries.
Okay. The next item is to consider approval of text amendment Z035 regarding mobile food trucks. So a motion, please.
I make a motion to approve the text amendment Z035 regarding mobile food trucks.
Support. Howe.
Moved and supported. Discussion.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. Oh, we can have some discussion on
Yeah,
it. Oh,
yeah.
okay. That's what I
We're
was.
doing it the right way. We're supposed
Right.
to make a motion and have discussion.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
for
I had
discussion.
quite a few things I wanted to say about this. We've lived in Highland for almost 40 years, and one of the reasons we moved to Highland is because we felt Highland was a unique community where people had, all the residents had the support behind them to do things that they wanted to do. They could pursue their dreams in a lot of areas. It wasn't like White Lake and Waterford. It wasn't as regimented and structured. And I support small business. I also really support food trucks. I think anybody who has the ambition and the knowledge to do that, I give them a lot of credit. And I don't want to be like White Lake and like the other communities that say that this is kind of saying, well, you know, your idea of small business doesn't meet all of our regulations and guidelines. And so, you know, you don't have the opportunity to get out and do something that was your dream. And I was reading again all the positive comments about it. I couldn't find one negative comment. I found comments like, you know, I'm a trucker and I can't go through McDonald's and I can pull over and get a nice fresh meal from a food truck. I found comments like, you know, long lines at McDonald's, everything's self-contained in a food truck. There's no issues with waste and sewage and all of that thing, and encourage the small business. Other people see that type of operation and they think, well, maybe I can do something on my own. And, you know, that's what this country is all about, in my opinion. And also, there's just a lot of positives about it. I didn't read one person that was against it. So I've really, you know, changed my opinion about a lot of small businesses since I've lived here. And I think that this gives people the opportunity to really do a lot of things that they've wanted to do, and that keeps Highland. I always called Highland an oasis in the midst of urban sprawl. And I think that's what I always want Highland to be.
All right. Anybody else?
Okay, so I'll revisit my original quest. I believe that whether the food truck is good or bad, it should have proper permission to be on a piece of property. I don't care if it's Peters or the Potters or the gas station. Do they have permission to be on that property? And this ordinance should be addressed to the property owner if he's going to allow someone to use his property for some reason.
Right. I don't have that information.
I mean, the where this ordinance sets right now is this is an ordinance not necessarily about one piece of property. This is an ordinance generally about it. So the review process by the planning commission was about individual pieces of property, you know? So this isn't really speaking to one piece of one person or one situation. It's a general explanation over it. And I agree with you though. That's one thing we have discussed on the planning commission is for people now coming in for some of these things, whatever it is, you have to have the commitment, like you're saying, Joe, of the property owner to come in and say, because obviously you're just getting a lot of times they could have a letter saying that this person can do this, which is usually what we have them do. They have to provide a letter that says the property owner is allowing him to do that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the property owner understands all the implications that are on him or whatever, or that he has to follow. But this is not about a specific chunk of property or a specific situation.
I understand that, and I believe that we need to make sure any property owner is made aware of the fact that it's his responsibility for parking, for access, for vehicles, and all those things. Not that it shouldn't be the food truck itself, but this needs to be clarified for sure.
Well, that's like the bigger picture of this whole thing is what came about is basically it's all about what we're going to require of businesses. And that's the discussion that started happening. And what came out of this as a larger discussion was, as much as I agree with you on a lot of that stuff, Beth, the problem that I have seen and that this got discussed in the planning commission is it has to be, we require a lot of rules of all kinds of businesses, and you're being in the hospital business, you can understand that, right? And there's reasons for those rules. We require handicap and energy efficiency and stormwater management and all these different rules. And what came out of this was that if those rules for a business that's going to be there, setbacks and all kinds of things like that, that those rules need to get applied across the board. And so if you're going to operate the business, then all those things need to be met, And so, there's very little latitude in that, in my opinion, in the sense that either all those rules are good and we're following them all for a good reason and everybody should follow them, or they're not, and we shouldn't, and no one should have to follow them. Now, I'm okay with the second one, but I don't think everybody else is going to be, if there's no handicap spots and there's no parking, there's not enough parking requirements and there's not, go down the list. I mean, once you look at what we require from everybody, either they're important rules, and when it's a temporary thing, and what we got talking about was what was temporary. When it's a temporary thing and it's a couple of days or a weekend or for an event, then those rules can get, stretched or whatever. But if it's not going to be, and it's going to be a permanent thing, then it's all those rules need to be met, basically.
One other thing I don't recall being mentioned, was there any discussion on who's insuring for any damages or liability for accidents or injuries for cars or pedestrians or customers or the property of the owner, the property owner? Is there any insurance? Anybody got insurance on this?
I mean, I don't think as a township, we require that. I mean, that's, if somebody gets into a lawsuit or whatever, that's kind of, I don't think we require that of a full-time business. The township has no idea about that, but obviously, like liability wise, we have to review those things and do our due diligence to make sure that if you have a drive-through, you have so many stacking spaces and things like that. So there was a discussion about liability on the township side. If we don't review those things and we do have somebody, that hasn't had electrical permits or hasn't, whatever it is, and then something happens, we're reviewing a plan that we're not holding everybody to that standard, basically,
Understand. It's just something that would be very important. Whether this would be good for the food truck or not, I think the food truck operator needs to be aware of, do they have liability coverage if something happens in their immediate area?
I'm going to let the food truck owner speak. Push your button on this.
Speak loud, please.
I'm sorry. The first question that you were addressing, that Grant was talking about was setbacks and everything like that. The rules should be applied across the board the same to buildings, because that's what you're talking about. The difference is that we're not a building, we're a vehicle. And the vehicle comes and goes every day. And we fall under the rules of MDARD, of the County Health Department, of DOT and all that type of stuff to be licensed. So we are under great regulation and a lot of inspections that need to go on with the fire department. Even they come all the time and inspect. So there's a lot of regulations that aren't being spoke about here. We are also insured as well and have that on file too with Matt Whalen. Matt's the owner of it, and he gave us written permission to be there. And I do have an agreement with him, and yes, we are insured. I think some of the differences is that we're trying to apply things that for a building, and we're not a building, we're a vehicle, and we can move at any time. And we do move. Every day we come in and every day we leave. And we're only there from usually 7 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Any other questions or discussion?
Do I have any questions? No.
I have a question for Grant. If you're done.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I just thought if you're done, yeah. So is there ever in a world where we could put enough requirements on a piece of property to meet all of the similar things that a regular business would have to do as far as runoff and parking spaces and disability and all of that, where we could have a food truck as a semi-permanent setup?
So based on my experience of the planning commission so far, let me bring it back to another thing that just happened to us. So we had Wiggles and Giggles. I don't know if you're familiar with where the location is. Okay. They wanted to put in a mobile childcare situation. They wanted to, obviously money's a factor and all these other things. They wanted to put in basically an addition, which they had zoning variances for, and they had all these other things. Now, we, as a planning commission and everything like that, require them, and as ordinance and everything else, that require them to make that look like it's a permanent situation. So that's a person that has a business here. They've been here for 50 years, and we're going to make them take their business and we're going to make it look, we want a pitched roof, and we want no skirts on the side of it, and we want all these things. And they have to meet the setbacks. They have to meet all these different things. And so, in the same thing with houses, I don't know a situation that Highland Township would allow someone to take a lot and move a house onto it. We can't do that. You have to build a permanent structure. You can't have a mobile house and live there and leave when you want to leave and come there when you want to come and all these other things, So I just don't know this is not, if I'm a business owner, then I do whatever it takes for my business. But for Highland Township, I'm just saying, I don't know what the benefit to Highland Township is for us to say that this business can be, you can apply this across the board to not just food trucks, right? You can apply this to, car dealerships. You can apply it to a lot of things, right? I don't know what this is the way it's always been. We haven't allowed temporary, anything really, you know what I'm saying? For short-term usages where you're not going to like, if you're a Christmas tree salesperson, there's no permanent Christmas tree sales places, I can see usages for that because there's no actual need for that, but then there's a situation of like, I don't know the real benefit, even if it were to meet setbacks and meet drainage requirements. And honestly, because of what I do for a living, I know that once all those things are met, your investment is going to be so high. And then obviously as a township, we talk a lot about, do we want these buildings built? What happens if this building goes away? How could it be repurposed and things like that? You don't want to end up, and I don't know that really makes a whole, I've seen situations, and that's not saying that food trucks can't be here. There's plenty of situations where there's food trucks. There was one at the carnival and there's one at Highland Township things. I think that's a usage that makes sense, but I just can't get there for requiring all these things for all the other businesses. And then you have to spread it out. Once this stuff starts happening, then I'm in agreement. I own plenty of businesses, and I think there's a lot of room for a lot of stuff to happen that doesn't hurt anything, but I just don't know what the benefit to Highland would be, you know? Obviously, it's a great business plan because you have a lot lower cost, you know? You don't have to pay for a lot of those things. But what's the benefit to Highland Township? For us as a community, you know?
So what about fireworks tents? So they could have the opportunity to occupy a building, but we allow them. So the way I understand this is that we currently have a temporary use ordinance. And what we're amending is adding a definition of food truck and pulling food trucks out separately to say that they're authorized event, permitted for an authorized event. And that's how they can exist. But any other temporary use can still, it just has to meet all the other requirements. It can be in OS, C1, C2, Highland Station, no permanent structures. They have to meet certain setbacks. So really, we're just taking our existing temporary use permit or definition and saying, just kind of pulling food trucks out as a separate one. Is what I'm reading.
There was, I mean, kind of morphed through the planning commission of a lot of different phases, but we've talked about a lot of other temporary uses, and like fireworks stands was something that got discussed. And I mean, I don't know anymore. I don't know of a single fireworks stand or fireworks store. I mean, we had one in Highland, it's gone.
Right. And there was, one in White Lake or Waterford area. They don't really exist. But if one store was here, we would still allow a temporary fireworks sales, even if there was a store. I mean,
obviously we review each plan as it is or whatever, you know.
Right. And I think it needs to meet setbacks, and I don't think it needs to be in the road right away.
I think that's
doesn't
something
need to be in the green belt.
So in the current ordinance right now, it says in the ordinance, it does not give an actual number for in the temporary land use. It says an appropriate setback. And through this whole process, I think that there's been a lot of thought with that situation because, you know, through this whole process, I've got feedback from tons of business owners and stuff, and they were pissed because they're mad that they're not allowed to have a sign, or allowed to have two signs. They're not allowed to have a sign that's more than a certain amount of square footage, and they can't use this chunk of their property to do any of their business activity on, or they can't park cars in a certain way. And I mean, I can't argue with that. You're a business owner that's been here for a long time, paid property taxes, followed all the rules that we've implied, and then you know, we take some of these temporary usages and we just kind of blow that whole thing up, you know, and just say, well, you don't have to meet any of these setbacks. You don't have to, there's no site. We're not going to limit the amount of sign size you have, and we're not going to do all these things. I mean, I can't argue with the person when they say, why is this good for them, but it's not good for me? So I think, in my opinion, based on because obviously these food trucks, everybody voted unanimously on the planning commission to approve some of these things. And I personally voted to extend it to 180 days. But when you have people that bring things to your attention and say, why are you allowing this? And why is this okay? And it's not okay for me, then, hey, you can change my mind. I'm not stuck on a certain thing, you know? But I think that's something and based on my opinion on the planning commission, when people bring stuff in, I can get over the couple days situation, you know? Obviously, if it's going to be there for like a weekend and it's a special event, it's, you know, we can overlook some of this stuff, you know, because it's truly temporary, you know. But when it starts getting into like long-term usages and stuff, I can't tell this business owner that's next to them, they can't utilize that chunk of their property and their sign can't be any bigger, but then this other business can over there. And so, you know, I can't really speak to exactly what's been in the past with fireworks stand, this and that. I haven't been on the planning commission for all that, but my personal opinion is as these things come in, the appropriate setback in my mind is for anything longer than a couple of days is going to start becoming what the business next to them is and what their business is allowed to do. So if they can find a way to come in there for a short period of time and make those things happen, plus the appropriate setback kind of is differing, right? I mean, if you're, you know, like for the carnival, they're there for 3 days. They pack all their stuff up, they're gone. And obviously you're not going to have a carnival in Highland if you have say they have to, there's just not, it's not going to happen, and you're not going to have, no one's going to sell fireworks in Highland if they have to have a building to sell them for a week out of the year. Right. But there's other usages where there's plenty of other businesses that are there the whole year and they apply to all the rules and they follow them all. And, that's.
I have another comment. Thanks, Grant.
Thank you.
Who owns the eastway off M59 going into Peters Hardware? The driveway going into Peters Hardware. Peter. Okay. Who owns the exit on the other side by the designer place?
I think that's Matt Whalen's other property.
Okay. So those properties are being used by the traffic that's coming into service for food. So there again, other business owners are being somewhat penalized because you couldn't sell sandwiches if people couldn't get in on those driveways. So that's part of the reason people are concerned about you're getting free use of someone's driveway to get to your product. Okay. The other thing is that we talk about temporary business, and I believe in what you're doing, but temporary is short term. 180 days like long term. People that cut grass, that's could be temporary because you only cut grass during a certain season. Guys that shovel snow are seasonal. So in this case, your food truck is kind of seasonal, but it's not temporary. I don't see it as temporary.
One thing I did discuss, Tammy, too, like with Beth about this in the planning commission and everything is I kind of just, based on what I do for a living and I've been on the business side, I've been on the builder side, I've been on all these engineering side. I just know that a lot of these things we could potentially write this ordinance that says if you meet all these things like that, right, then it could be okay. But what everybody would know if they've been involved in all that stuff is when you start investing $4 million in developing a piece of property in 2 years and getting permits and going to Oakland County and the stormwater management and getting a septic field installed and everything, at the end of the day, it's not going to end up with a food truck, right? You're gonna get to the point, just like what ended up happening with the people that wanted that Wiggles and Giggles. Eventually, they realized we kept pushing them, saying, "Hey, by the time you take this trailer and turn it into a building, it's going to be like more money and it's not going to really work real well." And at the end, they spent a year going down that road and then realized we're better off just building a building, And so, I think it would be, there's a world that you could do that in, but I don't see a situation that's going to play out by the time you start requiring trying to impose the requirements of a building on something else,
Well, that's the difference. You're still comparing a building to a vehicle, and a vehicle is totally different. And they already are regulated by the DOT, by regulations of the police, and it is a totally different unit than an actual building. And right now, everything you're saying is dealing with a building, but it is not a building. It's a vehicle. And it does have different rules and regulations. You're correct, but we are following all those rules and regulations. We're inspected by the fire department. Our fire system is gone through twice a year. We have all these inspections that go on for the county health department and MDARD, and we do follow all those rules. So what you're saying really does apply to buildings. It does not apply to vehicles. And the fact that we can move it at any moment is also regular, it releases all these other concerns, because if there's a problem, I can move that thing in a few minutes and it's out of the way. So that's why I'm saying buildings, you can't pick up and move.
Well, let me ask
Whatever
you this
you
then.
put
If you want to be at a location for as long as possible during the year, why don't you want to have a restaurant in a building?
Well, number one, a lot of restaurants go under in their first 5 years. So it makes more sense to have a food trailer, number one, to see if it's going to be successful, and then build up your clientele to possibly put one in if it's in the right location. But also the reason of where we're at in Highland, there are no other food establishments within miles. I have my clientele call me on a regular basis saying, when are you going to get back there? Because we have no place to eat. And so there's a lot of reason to be in that area because there's nothing available there.
Go back to my original comment. I understand the need for what you have. I'm saying that you need to find a location, or in this case, if it's who owns it, You ought to be at a facility that there is adequate parking and access, and the owner has given you permission to use that parking facility, and there's ways to get your traffic in and out. I think that's the big hang up here. I
Well,
think that's the big
has
problem.
been for 3 years. We've had adequate parking. People go in and out. We've had no problems with what is there. Powers Flowers is there certain parts of the year only, and then they're closed. We're closed at least 3 months out of the year, depending on weather. We're only there 4 days a week to begin with. So we're not a permanent structure of any kind. We're a vehicle. We move in and out daily. We do not leave it there overnight. And so it's a totally different situation than what Mr. Grant is describing, Mr. Charlotte is describing. And I think there's a place for it. If y'all read that food truck study, townships don't need to be worried about food trucks because they bring new people to the area. They bring new business to the area. You know, I have people tell me all the time, they look for food trucks and they come. So when they come, they see all the businesses around it. Most of the time I have people order, then they go to Peter's or they go to fill up with gas or they go to look at flowers and then they come back and get their food because we're not fast food, but we are good food. So, but it takes a few minutes to prepare. And so it's bringing more income to that area and to the businesses that are around it.
I have a question for you, ma'am.
Yes.
So how do you, maybe I don't know, but how do you get to that property? Are you renting that space?
Yeah, we
From who?
with Matt Whalen.
Matt Whalen, okay.
Yep. And also, you know, it does have a pass through there, but it's very easy for them to keep passing through. People come and go all the time from the flower shop, from our place. They're not there very long. Like I said, a lot of people come and order, they go get gas, they come back, get their food and they leave. So it's pretty quick.
And how does Peters feel about, I'm assuming they come in that way too, through that driveway?
They come in either way. They go through to Peter. Well, Peter must like it because a lot of them go over there and shop while they're waiting.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
All the folks that seem to be complaining seem not to want to write a official complaint. Is it possible to get these folks to file official complaints?
I mean, my outlook on it is, I mean, I'm thinking for the township, you know what I'm saying? I can't, you know, and it sounds like the situation to me is it's a financial thing. It's a benefit financially, you know? And so we don't go through to a lot of other businesses and say, well, you know, we have this parking requirement, but it's going to cost a lot of money. So we're not going to have a requirement for it, you know? So to me, like, I mean, if we were going to have any type of usage on there for not temporary, in my opinion, 180 days, 90 days, it's not really temporary, you know? And so, and like I said, I was the one that voted for it, that we voted unanimously for it. But when you know, situations unfold, opinions change. And, you know, if that was going to be a restaurant usage, we would make them put sidewalks in, we would make them, and I'd be 100% honest. The Powers Flowers thing to me is kind of a black sheep too. I mean, you know, Peters sells mulch. I mean, a lot of the same stuff's going on with none of the requirements, you know? And so apparently that's under some farm usage thing or whatever, but I have to look at it as it's not really the cost thing for me. The more I think about this, the cost is a byproduct, an end product of all the rules that get applied to people. Whatever the rules are, whether it's happen to have a paved parking lot, whether it's having the drainage, whether it's having, you know, energy efficiency codes, whether it's, you know, whatever the rules are that we apply to everybody else, you know? And so the way I have to look at it is at all the businesses that you have to apply that to all the businesses, you know, and if it's good for one business in Highland, then I think that it has to be applied to the rest, you know?
Well,
when it's not a temporary usage, you know, if you're going to be there for a couple of days, okay. You know, but I mean, how do I explain to another business how I'm not going to require any of that stuff? And I understand she's saying that the county does this and the county does that. Well, there's different rules. There's county rules for all kinds of stuff in Highland, right? But we have ordinances, and the ordinances are what Highland says is what needs to be applied, you know?
But I think you still go back to the difference between a building.
I have a question.
And a vehicle. There's a huge difference between the two.
So, if we left the ordinance the way it is the planning commission looking to regulate based on certain setbacks of the building. So currently, we're talking about one parcel that is vacant and has one temporary use already that sits in the place where it's supposed to sit. It has the setbacks, it has the parking, but when you put a second temporary use on this parcel, it now becomes cumbersome and possibly dangerous, even though it hasn't. It's not meeting ingress, egress, site distance. So if it's just this parcel, I mean, is that use allowed somewhere else where they have a big parking lot where they can sit back and not encumber, and make.
What happened when you were at Peter's Hardware? You were there for a while. What happened?
Peter's Hardware, they said they could only park on the one side and it has a pretty nice slope. We did everything we could to try.
Who's they?
The township said we could only park in one spot, which I don't understand that. But it was a spot that's on such a slope, you can't level the trailer.
Yeah, it's pretty steep.
It's really steep. We tried everything we could to level it and it just would not go. So we had to move it.
So the planning commission passed this 6-1. It would, and obviously one person was absent, or 7-1. I can't remember. 6-1, 7. It was 7-1, I think. So it was almost unanimous vote on the planning commission side. I don't know what the rest of the planning commission is going to do, but my personal opinion is if this isn't adopted, my opinion will be that it needs to meet, obviously I can only impose what the ordinance allows or whatever. So I can't just say whatever my thoughts are, but it says an appropriate setback. My one of, 9 votes is going to be that it meets the setback of the property, and it would need to meet, the sign requirements also, meaning that if whatever signage is placed there or whatever would need to meet what our signage requirements. So if this isn't adopted, that would be my outlook on it, but I'm one of 9 people.
So, attorney, Lisa? If there's a motion on the table and a vote needs to be made, if the only way you could do, I don't know, it seems like there's enough conversation here to put a slight delay in the process to maybe look at some other things. What would be the path? We didn't vote. Yep.
To withdraw the motion, seconded, and then voted on, because now it's the whole board.
What are we voting on?
To rescind. Okay. His motion. Seconded by the person who seconded, and then voted on by, and then another.
All right. Who made the motion? That's your prerogative. Turn your
I will. Yep. So I make a motion to withdraw my motion to approve of the text amendment to Z35 regarding mobile food trucks.
So this hinges on me, huh?
Yep.
Support.
Okay. Right. Okay, vote please.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia.
Sylvia, yes.
Let's see, Mrs. Lewis.
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe.
Mr. Howe votes yes.
Mr. Charlotte.
Charlotte, no.
Miss Frederick.
Frederick, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes.
All right, motion carries.
Okay. I'll make a motion to table postpone to a later date. I can't say, do we have to put a date on this? Okay, no date certain. There's a motion to postpone, no date certain.
Support.
Okay. Any discussion on it?
A discussion. I believe there's some room to clarify some things. Grant, I know the planning commission works really hard on this, and we went from hot to cold, and I believe we need to add some elements in there that might address this a little more cautiously, whether it's this property or somebody else's food truck. I think we can find something to fit that, but I fully understand the work of the planning commission, and they did a great job. I just think we need to visit it carefully one more time.
I'd just like to make another quick comment. I truly agree with what you said about the fact that I think that we're looking at two different things. I mean, I know ordinances have to apply to all businesses, but this is not a building, it's a truck. I was an insurance underwriter for 30 years, property casualty auto, and I cannot look at a building like a truck. So I think a good point would be, let's pursue some other townships, areas close by that have food trucks more than just for special events, and see how they handle it too. I think that would be helpful.
Planning commission's already done that.
Any other comments? Okay, we'll vote, please.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Mr. Howe votes yes.
Mr. Charlotte,
Charlotte, no.
Miss Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Yes.
Mr. Hamel,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. It's in the limbo mode again, temporarily. All right. Next item is new business. Consider approval of the Marine Patrol Agreement. So we got the Marine Patrol contract. How to move it along? I'm going to say motion to approve the Highland Township Supervisor to sign the 2025 through 27 Marine Patrol Services Agreement with Oakland County as presented.
Support, Howe.
Moved and supported. Any discussion?
Was
Oh.
there increase? I didn't,
Yes, slightly.
did it say it in the memo? I'm sorry.
Not how much, but.
Okay.
Do you remember, Cassie?
Okay. That's what I wondered.
Give them a couple of weeks and they'll modify it. Sorry, Matt. So they've adjusted, they'll be in front of us for their lake board, and then their budget will be adjusted appropriately. All right, any discussion on that? Did I get a support on that? Yeah. Okay, vote please.
Mr. Howe,
Mr. Howe votes yes.
Mr. Charlotte,
Charlotte, yes.
Miss Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Hamel,
And yes.
motion carries.
Next item. We'll do some speed motion here. I make a motion to approve the resolution 25-14 to authorize road closure for Highland Farmers Market.
Support, Lewis.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? Okay, vote please.
Mr. Charlotte,
Charlotte, yes.
Miss Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Mr. Howe votes yes.
Mr. Hamel,
And yes.
motion carries.
All right. Next item. Get to that. Is part-time, excuse me, is to consider, it's a request for posting a new part-time position, payroll HR administrative assistant. This is a position that is becoming pretty important from the standpoint that we've taken our bookkeeper and turned her into a do-all with not all the time to be able to do all. And so throwing the human resources on top of the bookkeeping is a pretty big project. So this is, I think, a pretty critical addition. The position is to concentrate on human resources and to do it efficiently. What's that?
So the big focus is payroll, and then some of the HR administration is with that too, because it is taking a lot of time out of the accounting office. This was a recommendation from the audit team as well. After they completed the audit, we kind of checked around as well. Most of our neighboring jurisdictions have 2 full-time equivalent in their accounting department. And I think it could really help us take the next step in doing our accounting accuracy and completeness.
Right. Somebody want to make a motion?
I make a motion to authorize posting a part-time payroll and HR administrative assistant. You're just asking to post it. Does it have a?
You include the details, the position details on the screen there at the bottom.
Okay, so the position would be at part-time hourly, hours up to 29 hours, compensation $21.68 per hour. Benefits, paid time off and holidays according to work schedule.
Right. It's a motion.
Support Howe.
Moved and supported. Any questions? Discussion? All right. Vote please.
Mrs. Frederick,
Yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Mr. Howe votes yes.
Mr. Charlotte,
Charlotte, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next item is consider request for posting a new part-time position as assistant zoning administrator. Is it fair to disclose that we have an opening coming up? Lisa Burkhart, who has been with the township for 46 years or something like that, has kind of been in that position for quite some time, and many others. And she's made the decision to, the date she gave was August 21st. She's going to move into the next phase of her life. And so it leaves us in a spot where we are definitely going to be hurting for the knowledge that she carries in her head because she has a lot. But we're also going to be in a position where we need somebody to back up our zoning administrator, Carrie Little Bear, and be sorely needed to have that position filled. So this is a request for a part-time. So somebody want to make a motion?
I move to consider a request for posting a new part-time position for assistant zoning administrator. Part-time hourly, up to 29 hours per week, $24.99 per hour. Benefits, paid time off, and holidays according to work schedule.
Second.
Okay, moved and supported. Any discussion? All right, vote please.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr.
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Mr. Howe votes yes.
Mr. Charlotte,
Charlotte, yes.
Ms. Frederick,
Yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next items are budget amendment for vehicle maintenance. We had a scenario where we had to send in one of the trucks that we bought from the fire department. Boy, did you guys give us a doozy on that one. So we had to do some maintenance. It was to the tune of about $9,000. But you still couldn't buy a truck for what we got it for. So now it has a bunch of new parts in it, but it also put us over budget, but potentially over budget. So we needed to kind of change the item to increase the budget, to propose it to current increase it to 15,000. We'd only put 5,000 originally in there, so we kind of blew past that on one event. We're crossing our fingers that won't happen again. But anyways, go ahead.
I make a motion to approve the budget amendment for vehicle maintenance as presented.
Support Lewis.
Moved and supported. Vote please.
Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Mr. Howe votes yes.
Mr. Sharlick,
Charlie, yes.
Miss Frederick,
Yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Hamel,
Hamel, yes.
motion carries.
Okay, next item, budget amendment for maintenance for the WODA building. This is a proposal to add an account that will separately track maintenance expenses for WODA. We're actually trying to zero in on a lot of things so that we can, when people ask that question, what did it really cost us? And I think it goes back to when I first got into the office and I asked what the electrical expense was for the boulevard. And it came up that, well, we don't separate the meters. So there was no way that we could tell how much money was saved going from metal halide lights to LED lights. And that would have been a nice thing to find out because it probably was significant. So those kinds of things where we zero in on them, I think is pretty critical. And I appreciate that our bookkeeping is asking these questions and saying, would you like to separate this out? Because it makes sense. So somebody want to make a motion to approve? No.
I make a motion to approve the budget amendment for maintenance for the WODA building as presented.
Support Salvia.
Moved and supported. Vote please.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Mr. Howe votes yes.
Mr. Sharlick,
Charlie, yes.
Miss Frederick,
Yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia, or did I do you already?
Salvia, yes.
Mr. Hamel,
Hamel, yes.
okay.
Okay. The spotlight's on you, Nick.
Well, next up on the agenda is first thing, the memo requesting the authorization for paying for and purchasing our new set of extrication gear. We talked about it, I believe it was last September. We got a donation from a family, the Piercy and Ethel Duncan Trust. They actually left us $46,155.60. One of a big thank you to that family again for their donation. It wasn't just to us, it was also to the churches and foundations and the library. Left the same amount so that a lot of people benefited from them. With that, we discussed everything going over, and we only had one full set of extrication gear in Highland Township on our engines. So we purchased the second, or we're working on purchasing the second one. Total cost for us is only going to cost us $2,670.40 for this equipment. That's awesome. The teams tested out every company we have right now that can purchase this type of equipment. And right now, Genesis is the leader for the strength and abilities to be able to take care of the cars that are coming out nowadays. So that's what they decided to go with. So there's a authorization for supervisor sign the invoice for those. And then also, then we'll move on to the next one after that for the budget amendment. Yeah, it's cutters, spreaders, and a ram. The cutters do what they do. They cut the metal, the spreaders spread things apart. And then the ram actually kind of pushes, if like your dash is pushed in on you, we can use the ram to push it out. Actually, we found that the ram is actually very useful also for garbage truck fires. When the solenoids burn out and you can't open the back, you can use our rams for opening up the back end so we can actually dump the trash in the back.
Whoa.
But
All
it's one of
right.
those things where we do mutual aid for a department, and they have us cover their station to cover every call because they're on a call. They're on a bigger call. We cover their stations, and if we take our one engine, we can't cut out any accidents in their area. But if we take ours out, then we can't take care of our area for extrication. So now we can finally take care of that aspect.
I make a motion to allow the supervisor to sign the invoice and authorization purchasing extrication equipment from Michigan Rescue Resources.
Support, Howe.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All right, vote please.
Mr. Howe,
Mr. Howe votes yes.
Mr. Sharlick,
Ehrlich, yes.
Ms. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Hamel,
Hamel, yes.
motion carries.
Okay, this next one, there's actually two budget amendments here, isn't there?
Yep, there's one for the 206 account, one for our 402 account.
Okay, so we'll start with first one.
Okay, the 206 account was a request to, as I was going through amending the budgets for everything, I figured cover everything. We went over this year on a couple different things. We were hoping we'd have more people back to work, so our overtime would be lower. But we unfortunately have had more injuries, not on the job injuries, but off the job injuries where people have been off. So that overtime, I had to bring that back up. Which also with that was a reduction, or we reduced the firefighter payroll. So you kind of see that we're not having paid on call working as much. So the full timers are working and covering it. So that's why we had to change line items for that. Some defined contribution changes, things like that, which is just in lieu of how much payroll is going out. Nothing major there. And then the uniform cost was went up. We went over budget on that, mostly due to the funeral we had this year. Kind of wanted everybody to be able to be in Class A uniforms and looking their best for that. So I authorized more uniform purchases this year than normal. So we did changing the budget for that. Then other than I guess some added on to vehicle repair, building repair, stuff like that, just in case, because we're pushing the button on it already. So make sure we're good. Other than that, that's all that's really on that one, unless there's any questions about it. With that too, also before that, we have I budgeted low on our EMS transports. So I was able to increase our EMS transport budget to what is probably more likely going to be.
And I budgeted low on interest.
And we budgeted low on interest. So both of those cover all the costs of everything. So it's not going to be any negative in our budget at all.
I move to approve the budget amendment for the fire fund to reflect increases in fire revenue and expected changes in expenses.
Support, Howe.
Moved and supported. Vote please.
Mr. Sharlick,
Ehrlich, yes.
Ms. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Mr. Howe votes yes.
Mr. Hamel,
Hamel, yes.
motion carries.
Okay, next one.
The next one's for our 402 account, which is our capital improvement fund. Couple changes with this. We're predicting to purchase the first ambulance this year toward the end of the year. Some of the money I had set for the vehicles fund. Actually, it's the equipment that goes in the back of it. So when it came in, we weren't thinking about it. We just put it under equipment. So I had to transfer money from vehicles down to the capital equipment itself. And then the other funds with that were also changing it because we had the SCBAs that we tried to order at the end of last year. They couldn't get them in time for the end of the year. So I waited until we had to wait till this year. So that money was actually in last year's budget, but just went to our savings account and then it's in capital now. So it's nothing that stuff's already been approved and paid for. It's just doing an amendment of the budget to reflect other or moving of all that stuff kind of messed up everything. Funding wise.
All right.
I move to approve the budget amendment for the fire capital fund to reflect increases in fire capital revenue and expected changes in expenses.
Support. Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
Ms. Frederick.
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia.
Sylvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis.
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe.
Mr. Howell votes yes.
Mr. Sharlick.
Garlic, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
All right, on that note, meeting adjourned.